Sorry you're in my seat, the black girl said, her voice steadier than the hands that trembled slightly. The first-class ticket in her grip was clear 2A. The white man curled his lip, unmoving. I paid for first class, he replied, dry and flat. I'm not giving it up for a minor inconvenience. The flight attendant arrived. Name tag, Sandra Miles. She glanced between them, a flicker of impatience in her eyes, with takeoff pressing close. Sir, could you wait in the back cabin for a moment? Will. She didn't finish before the girl held up her ticket. The edge crumpled from her small fist. 2A is mine. No one spoke, but the stares did. Children don't need first class. Across the aisle, an elderly woman lifted her water glass, gray eyes locked forward. 3 rows back, a tall black man, Marcus Jenkins, rose halfway, his hand resting on the seat back, holding his distance. Seat 2A was booked weeks ago, he said evenly. Here's the ticket. Sandra exhaled softly, extended her hand. The scanner beeped. 2A, Amara. Jenkins, 12C economy, plus Richard Blackwell. The small screen confirmed undeniable. Richard didn't look at it. He lowered his voice so only Sandra could hear. She doesn't need workspace like I do. I've got a meeting right after landing. Then, to the girl, you can sit in the back just this once. Silence. Only the click of overhead bins, the steady hum of the air system, and a small heart pounding fast beneath a neat jacket. The girl squared her shoulders. I have seat 2A, she repeated, no louder than before. All right then. Sandra's smile slipped into professional mode. Sir, let me see if there's another seat in first class available. Right now, 2A is no way. Richard cut her off, frowning. I always book this seat on this route. I've been platinum for 15 years. I don't fly economy. A low female voice cut in, calm and clear. Then I'll switch with you. The silver-haired woman set down her glass and stood smoothing her dress with practiced ease. The girl keeps 2A. I'll move down a row. She smiled gently at the girl. I've always preferred the window anyway. Richard froze for half a beat. With an escape handed to him, he took it, gathering his files and laptop briskly. Thank you, he muttered, tight-lipped. The woman nodded. Elizabeth Montgomery. Amara Jenkins, the girl whispered back, soft but audible. Marcus's hand still pressed the seat back behind her, an unseen tether steadying his daughter. Amara slid into 2A, buckled in. Elizabeth moved down. Sandra stepped aside. The rhythm toward takeoff resumed. No one, least of all the crew, knew the girl wasn't just any passenger. No one knew she was the daughter of a billionaire creator of a learning platform running in thousands of classrooms worldwide. No one knew a single phone call about to be made in minutes had the power to ground this aircraft. The plane shivered as it pushed back from the gate. The seatbelt chime rang once. Wheels rolled, wings tilted. Detroit's sky dulled like frosted glass. 4 minutes later, the captain's voice sliced through the cabin, cold and flat. This aircraft will return to the gate. Security will board. Amara Jenkins, 9 years old, felt every gaze converge on her. A sea of faces blurred into the same vague judgment. She froze in the aisle ticket 2A, clutched like evidence, suddenly stripped of weight. Richard leaned away, avoiding all eyes but the attendants. I paid for first class, he repeated through clenched teeth. I'm not giving up my seat for some disruption. From the back row, Marcus laid a hand on his daughter's shoulder. Your seat was bought weeks ago, he said steadily. And here's the boarding pass to prove it. As whispers rippled like a rising tide, no one saw what had begun to stir beneath the carpeted aisle, something larger than a fight over one seat. No one noticed what had clenched tight inside a small chest, the breath of a child, more at home in labs than narrow aisles, more fluent in algorithms than strangers' stares. No one yet knew that to understand why a 9-year-old stood here now, you'd have to return to where the day first broke. The alarm clicked softly at 4:30 a.m. Amara was already awake. She lay still, listening to the house as silent as a lab that had just powered down. A moment later, she sat up and switched on her desk lamp. The shadow of a teddy bear stretched long across a NASA blanket. The room carried 2 layers of air. By the window, plush toys lined up on the Sill Science Fair ribbons, pinned to a corkboard, a few dog-eared storybooks. In the opposite corner, a desk surrounded by 3 monitors. The left scrolled lines of code. The center displayed growth charts. The right lit up with a heat map, blinking dots, live users flashing across time zones where children were still awake, still learning. Dreamscape was running. Big Day Sparrow Marcus said from the doorway, balancing 2 steaming mugs. 1 cocoa for her, 1 coffee for himself. The nickname had followed Amara since her first steps, small, quick-witted sometimes, perching on someone's shoulder before darting off with thoughts of her own. "I'm a little nervous," Amara admitted, warming her hands around the cup. "Soonk is old school. They're expecting someone else." Marcus sat on the edge of her bed, leaning in to meet her eyes. He had learned to read the tiniest tells, the hand brushing her hair behind her ear, more than 3 times the fine crease between her brows. "They're expecting someone who isn't you," Amara corrected herself, steadying her tone. "An adult, a man, not a 9-year-old black girl." "Today isn't about proving you belong," Marcus said. "It's about bringing them what you've built." The words landed like a pebble in still water, small, round, rippling outward. Amara nodded, took another sip. She set the cup down, swiveled to her screens, and ran through her presentation files one last time. USB in her blazer pocket. Backup in her carry-on. Another copy in the cloud. 3 backups, she murmured. No single point of failure. "Sequence?" Marcus asked, as he always did before a big meeting. Amara recited Data Classroom Experience, support module for dyslexia, expansion, plan commitment to underserved regions, budget, forecast. No wasted words. She paused at a margin note, haptic feedback for the blind prototype version. Pressing her lips together, she sketched a few extra lines in pencil. Beside her desk sat a small box with a photo of her and her mother in the park, yellow raincoats, hair blown sideways by wind as they laughed. Amara brushed the corner of the photo with her finger, then slipped it into the inner pocket of her blazer. 2 hours later, Detroit Metro was fully awake. Rolling suitcases echoed down glass corridors. The Jenkinses moved fast but not hurried. They knew the lanes, the turns, the shortcuts through security. Amara's passport bore stamps like tiny badges, Tokyo, London, Singapore, each one thickening the disbelief when adults asked, "Are you really the CEO?" at the gate. Amara reviewed her slides on a tablet. Marcus phoned their driver in San Francisco. Their talk overlapped the way it always did, sometimes father shielding daughter, sometimes colleague to colleague. "Ready, Sparrow?" Marcus asked when Group A was called. Amara straightened, tugged her blazer smooth. "Ready." Her ticket read 2A first class window seat. Marcus could have booked first class for both, but deliberately chose economy 3 rows back behind the partition. "If you need me, text," he said at the gate. Or hit the call button. The agent scanned her boarding pass, smiled, then hesitated half a beat at the passenger's real age. "Have a good flight," she said, returning the ticket. Amara nodded, stepped into the jet bridge. No one passing by knew she loved watching the wing at takeoff. The way the city shrank below looked like a hard problem quietly solved. First class glowed softly under dimmed lights. Wide leather seats invited her. Amara rolled her carry-on, hoisted it overhead with both hands. An elderly woman smiled from across the aisle. A young man with earbuds didn't look up. She settled into 2A, buckled in. The small monitor scrolled safety reminders. Her reading light cast a thin gold beam across sketches of the haptic circuit. Behind the partition, Marcus lifted a book, though his eyes strayed now and then toward the front cabin. The last passenger hurried down the carpet, breath ragged. He stopped at row 2, eyes locking on 2A. "Excuse me," he said, tugging his tie straight. "I think you're in my seat." Amara looked up, dark eyes round, silent for a beat. She glanced at her ticket, then back up. 2A is mine. The man, Richard Blackwell, shifted his ticket from one hand to the other, squinting at the row number. The crease in his brow deepened. "There must be some mistake," he muttered, then beckoned softly. Flight attendant Sandra approached with a thin smile. Tickets were passed back and forth. The scanner beeped. 2A Amara, 12C Richard. The air tightened. Sir Sandra said evenly, "Your seat is 12C Economy Plus." Economy, he echoed, as if it were a foreign word. "I need workspace. I need room. I can't. Economy." The girl tucked her pencil into the spine of her notebook, said nothing more. Sometimes a child's silence outweighed a flood of adult logic. Then, "I'll switch," the silver-haired lady offered at just the right moment. "I prefer the window anyway." She looked at Amara, her gaze landing like a hand on a shoulder. "You stay in 2A." Richard nodded, shoulders dropping as he moved to the other seat, still avoiding the girl's eyes. Amara glanced back toward Marcus. A barely there nod passed between them, an old signal. Okay, the doors closed, lights dimmed, engines pushed back. Amara leaned for a better view out the window. Detroit shrank beneath the wing like a model city in a glass case. The roads stretched into streaks of light. She thought of her opening slide, "Don't list what the company has done, show how one child learns better," when the words on a screen stop mocking them. A soft crackle from the cockpit. The seatbelt chime. Seats quivered. In economy, Marcus folded his book shut. In first class, Richard opened his laptop, clicking into a file thick with acronyms. Elizabeth rested her hand on the armrest, staring into the quiet in front of her. Amara drew one short line across her sketchbook. No one, not even the woman who had traded seats, knew the real story was only just beginning. And within minutes a voice from the cockpit would shake apart the careful plans aligned since 4:30 a.m. like a glass tipping on a flight attendant's tray. The plane tilted lightly again, like a wink from the sky. The seatbelt chime pinged, went off, then came back on. A glass of water shifted on its tray. Amara set her pencil down and gripped the armrest. Her breath shortened for a beat. A figure swept down the carpet, moving against the polite nods of flight attendants. Amara, a steady, low, female voice called. Zoe Washington appeared at the front of the cabin, hair tied back in a neat bun gray jacket draped over her shoulders, eyes landing instantly on the girl. "You okay?" She didn't wait for an answer. "Breathe like we practiced. In for 4, hold 4, out for 4. Her warm hand rested over Amara's small one. Amara nodded slightly. "In 4, hold 4, out 4. Ma'am, please return to your seat immediately." Sandra followed close behind, her voice still polite but tightened. "We're experiencing turbulence." "Give me a minute," Zoe said, eyes never leaving Amara. She panics when it jolts. Sandra froze, looked between them, then glanced at the glowing "Fasten Seat Belt" sign, hesitated, and shifted to the side of the aisle, bracing a hand against the seat back in case of another hard shake. "And you are?" Sandra asked. Her Zoe, replied calm, as if stating the obvious. "Zoe Washington. I work for her." The final syllable landed like a grain of sand on glass. Richard looked up sharply, fingers frozen on his keyboard. A short laugh escaped him, only to die when no one joined in. Behind the partition, Marcus had stood but stopped after one step, When Zoe's small signal told him, "Okay," the turbulence tightened rattling trays in the galley. Amara clutched the armrest matching Zoe's rhythm until the fourth cycle when the plane finally steadied. The seatbelt light stayed on. Zoe lowered her voice. Better. Amara nodded again. Better. Good. Zoe squeezed her hand once let go. I'll go back now. Ping me if you need anything. You must return to your seat now, Sandra repeated softer but unmoving. Zoe smiled thinly. I know, I'm going. She eased down the aisle, hand-trailing seatbacks like someone who knew the path in the dark. Richard leaned across his armrest, speaking low enough for only two to hear. Dreamscape, isn't it? Amara turned her head half an inch, her eyes cautious but not hostile. I don't know what you mean. Richard exhaled. Yes, you do. He looked at his laptop screen, tapped 3 keys in quick succession like brushing away a thought. You built the thing. That let my nephew finally read without stumbling. Amara stayed silent. One blink, then she pulled her sketchbook closer and bent over the half-finished haptic circuit lines. A young male attendant, Michael appeared with a tablet in hand. His gaze swept the cabin like counting heads, then stopped at 2A. Miss Amara Jenkins, he asked softly. Amara looked up. The captain would like a word with you. Please come with me. The sentence landed like a new chalk line across the aisle. Richard's head snapped up, brows tight. What's this about just procedure? Michael said, his voice forged from thin steel, polite, but offering no explanation. Amara studied his face. My father. He may come. Michael nodded. Captain said so. Marcus was already on his feet before Michael could turn. He strode quickly toward the front, stopped at 2A, laid a hand on his daughter's shoulder, nothing more than, I'm here. Michael knocked 3 short raps on the cockpit door. It opened. Captain James Sullivan stood inside, broad shoulders, salt and pepper hair, eyes clear as glass. To his right sat First Officer Mei Chen. Lips pressed, one hand poised on the panel as numbers shifted across the screens. Thank you for coming. Sullivan nodded. I'm sorry for the disruption. His gaze moved first to Amara, then Marcus. We just received a message from ground security in San Francisco. He inhaled, speaking like reading a checklist he hated. There was an anonymous call claiming this child is traveling under false documents and that her father is using her as cover for illicit business activity. Amara stood stiff like a pencil, planted upright, silent and thin. Marcus lifted his chin. That's a lie. His voice did not rise. Her documents are valid. Her purpose is legitimate. I'm not disagreeing, Sullivan replied evenly, but with a report protocol requires us to act. He tilted his head toward Mei Chen. Advise Oakland on possible diversion. Yes, Captain Mei Chen answered, eyes steady on the instruments. Alternate route loaded. We're diverting back, Amara asked her first words. Sullivan looked at her, decisive, but not harsh. No. We'll divert to Oakland. Security will board, verify, then clear us to continue. He paused. I know you have business in San Francisco. I'm sorry. I have my passport, Amara said. Invitation letter meeting, schedule, confirmation emails. She unzipped her blazer, pulled her passport from the inner pocket like playing an ace. Marcus handed over his phone with the open meeting email. Sullivan glanced over both, nodded. All seems in order. Still, I understand, Marcus cut in, eyes darkening slightly. Protocol. A small ping lit up the panel. Mei Chen lifted her eyes. Oakland confirms. Sullivan nodded. Thank you, First Officer. He turned back. I'll brief the passengers. When we land, I suggest you have these documents ready exactly as shown to expedite the process. Amara neither nodded nor shook her head. She only clutched her passport until her fingers reddened. "One more thing," Sullivan added, voice dropping like distant rain. "The call came 20 minutes ago, just after we pushed back from the gate. Just after—" Marcus stopped mid-sentence. He didn't finish the rest aloud. Neither did Amara, but both looked at each other for a brief second, then away, as if thinking of the seat across from 2A. Sullivan opened the cockpit door. "Thank you." He gave Amara one last look. "We'll be as quick as possible." Michael led father and daughter out. The door shut behind them, swallowing the cockpit's dense glow. Back in the cabin, the air felt thicker. Heads lifted, then dipped again in a ripple. Richard stared at Amara as if through thick glass his own reflection warped on the other side. The ding sounded. The captain's deep voice filled the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, due to a security matter requiring resolution, we will divert to Oakland. Upon landing, security personnel will board. Please cooperate and remain calm. Thank you." A murmur cracked open like crumpled paper. "Security, we'll miss our connection." What on earth? Elizabeth pulled out her phone, stared at the blank no-signal screen, slid it back into her purse, and clasped her hands tightly in her lap. She leaned sideways, speaking softly into the air. "Someone's going to pay for one phone call." Amara fixed her eyes on the seat back, stitching ahead, the lines running steady like calm numbers. She tucked her passport back into her blazer pocket, zipped it shut, and drew a long breath the way Zoe had taught her. Across the aisle, Richard closed his laptop fingers, laced together a small pulse beating at his neck. He opened his mouth, then shut it again, as if swallowing something too solid to name. The plane banked. Somewhere beneath broken cloud, San Francisco Bay glimmered like a promise pushed back. No one spoke it aloud, but all knew from this moment on every schedule was rewritten. And behind a door yet to open, the questions waiting would leave no room for evasion. The wheels touched down on Oakland's runway softer than many expected, the squeal of rubber like a stifled sigh of relief. The plane taxied away from the terminal toward a remote stand where two vehicles with flashing red and blue lights waited. The engines wound down into a low hum. "Please remain seated until further notice," the PA said. The main door opened. The salty bay air swept in mixed with the heat of rubber. Two airport security officers boarded, followed by a woman in a black suit with an FBI badge clipped neatly to her pocket. Her hair was tied low, her eyes neither sharp nor soft, just the gaze of someone who had heard too many lies. Special Agent Tanya Rodriguez, she introduced herself to Sandra over the murmur of the cabin. "We need to speak with Amara Jenkins and Marcus Jenkins." Sandra nodded, swallowed once. She walked briskly to row 2. "Miss Amara, Mr. Marcus, please come with me." Her voice was lower than usual. Amara rose, straightened her blazer, lifted her chin. Marcus moved close beside her, a tall shadow at the right angle to block the sun. The passengers watched, some curious, some irritated, some sympathetic, some cold. Richard sat stiff, arms clutched around his laptop like a life preserver. Behind him, Elizabeth leaned forward, her eyes following the two small figures heading toward the forward galley. She rose, whispered to Sandra as she passed. "Do you need me?" Sandra shook her head lightly. "Thank you, ma'am. I'll return." In the narrow space by the door, Agent Rodriguez opened a small notebook, her words crisp. "I understand this is unpleasant. We need to verify your identities and the purpose of your travel." Marcus handed over his passport. Amara passed hers. Their boarding passes lay alongside Marcus's phone screen, open to an email from SUNTC Ventures meeting time address attendee list. Rodriguez looked, nodded, passed it to a colleague who jotted notes. "Anyone traveling with you, Zoe Washington?" Marcus said. "Chief Operating Officer of my subsidiary." "Where is she?" "Rear cabin." Rodriguez nodded. "We'll confirm." She turned to Amara. "What's your role at Dreamscape?" "I'm the founder," Amara said. "And CEO." The words pinned themselves to the air like a tack to a board. No one laughed. No one gasped. The note-taker only cleared his throat and wrote another line. A small sound behind Rodriguez. Richard had half risen, then dropped back down, jolted by his own thought. Elizabeth moved to an empty aisle seat closer, leaning on the armrest, eyes fixed on the group at the galley. She glanced over Richard's shoulder for a moment, long enough to chill the back of his neck. "Do you want to say something?" she asked softly. "I don't." Richard started, then shut his mouth. Elizabeth's smile was one without warmth. "Silence can be confession too, but I'm not the one that girl needs to hear it from." Rodriguez returned the passports. The documents appear valid. However, she paused, touched her earpiece as if catching a signal. 2 seconds passed. Then she continued in the same even tone. "We've received additional information. A complaint about financial transactions linked to your company. This falls under financial crimes. My colleague, Agent Michael Donovan, will handle that at the office." A thin silence stretched. "I'll need you both to leave the aircraft so we can proceed. Our attorney is on the way," Marcus said instantly. "Diane Chen, she'll meet us at the office." "Good," Rodriguez nodded. "The sooner the better." She turned to Sandra. "Once they've disembarked, the flight can prepare to continue after we complete procedure." "Mom, a child," whispered just loud enough for Rose nearby. "They're taking the girl away." Her mother placed a hand on hers, whispering, "Hush," soft as a cloud. Amara glanced back. Her seat 2A sat empty, its belt crossed like 2 chalk marks. Across the aisle, Richard finally met her eyes. His face had drained pale sweat, dotting his temple. He began, but no words followed. "It's time," Rodriguez said, stepping aside to clear the path. Marcus placed his hand on his daughter's back. They stepped onto the green carpet past the open door where the bay air swept in. Zoe appeared halfway up the cabin, moving quickly as if through parting waters. "I'm coming," she said. "I'm COO. I can answer for operations." Rodriguez nodded. "Come." Near the door, Elizabeth brushed Marcus's sleeve as he passed, a touch so light it almost wasn't there. "See you where the light is brighter," she murmured, "just for him." Marcus dipped his head in thanks. They exited. Sandra stood by the door, spine straight, eyes damp but unshed. When they come back, she whispered like a promise to herself, "I'll bring her an orange juice." The door closed. The cabin resumed its rhythm, but not the same rhythm as before. The captain's voice came over the speakers, assuring the flight would continue shortly. Some passengers sighed, some checked their missed connections. Some typed messages to send once the service returned. Richard sat rigid, hands opening and closing on his knees. He lurched up, then dropped back down as if he'd struck a glass wall. Elizabeth slid into the empty seat across from him. "What's your name?" she asked as if speaking to herself. "Richard Blackwell," he replied, unable to find a reason to lie. "I know," she said. "I just wanted to hear you say it." She tilted her head. "Did you make the call?" Richard swallowed dry. He stared at his hands. "I made the call. For a seat," Elizabeth said, neither harsh nor forgiving, "and for something heavier than a seat." Richard covered his face palms damp. "I was wrong." "One day you'll have to say that before many more people," Elizabeth replied. "But first you'll need to say something else more than those 4 words." She rose, leaving him with an empty seat no one claimed, and a wave of shame too large to name. Outside Oakland, sunlight slanted through a small window. In the distance, the flashing patrol vehicles sat still like predators crouched in wait. In an office just a few blocks away, a ceiling light was about to flicker on a file folder about to be opened and a 9-year-old girl about to face questions meant for adults. No one on that plane knew the whole story, but some had begun to understand what had just rolled off the runway wasn't only an aircraft's wheels, it was a piece of the old world. The hallway of the federal offices in Oakland felt colder than the season outside. The smell of new carpet and printer ink hung in the air. A vending machine hummed in the corner, fluorescent lights glowing steady as a ruled line. Conference Room 3, Agent Tanya Rodriguez said, opening the door and holding it for Amara, Marcus, and Zoe. Inside, a long table, leather-wrapped metal chairs, a plastic water jug, a few white paper cups. When the door shut, the noise of the world thinned as if behind glass. "I'll need to check a few things," Rodriguez said. "Please, have a seat." She placed a slim file on the table pen, poised her breathing already steady. Full name, Amara Adina Jenkins. Amara answered, holding her paper cup as if it were a butterfly. Date of birth, she recited it. Purpose of travel, meeting with Sunsea Ventures, Amara said. To propose program expansion. The door opened. A broad-shouldered man with salt and pepper hair entered, carrying a thicker case file. Agent Michael Donovan Rodriguez introduced. He set his case down, unlocked it with a metallic snap, and sat opposite. "Sorry to have to do this today," Donovan said, East Coast cadence pressing against his consonants. "But we've received a complaint regarding financial transactions. I need to ask a few questions." Marcus laced his hands on the table. Zoe leaned slightly aside so she wouldn't block Amara's view. Donovan turned a page, his finger halting on a line. "International accounts. Transfers in and out. Explain the purpose." "Subsidy program," Zoe answered, rhythm, even like reading code she knew by heart. "We work with schools in low-income regions. Funds are routed through centers to convert currency and pay local expenses. Documentation." Donovan lifted his eyes. "Latest quarterly audit," Zoe replied, already swiping her iPad, enlarging a stamped page, sliding to another. "Filed with the SEC. Contracts with education departments. Cash flow reports." Amara pulled a small pouch from her blazer, producing a clipped stack. Invitation letter, agenda, attendee list. She set it down gently, the paper whispering. Rodriguez took notes. Donovan scanned each page, pausing longer at a Kenyan CFO's signature, then at a bolded figure in the right column. The girl, he corrected himself. "CEO Jenkins, are you familiar with the details of these transfers?" "Not all," Amara replied. "But I know how the money moves to reach classrooms. And I can explain the system I designed to prevent loss." She picked up a pen, drew a small circle, connected it to 2 squares, then crossed out half a path. Marcus's gaze softened as he watched her lines. A knock. The door cracked open. A woman with cropped hair, sharp eyes, and a black suit entered, carrying a leather bag. "Diane Chen," she said, handing out a card. "Counsel for Dreamscape. Sorry I'm late." Rodriguez shifted her chair, nodding. Donovan checked his watch, closing his case a notch. "I need 10 minutes with my clients," Diane said, already sliding a chair close to Amara. "This won't take long." "Go ahead," Rodriguez said, palm open. With the door closed, Diane turned to Amara, first setting her hand near the small one on the table. "You all right? I'm all right." Diane glanced at Marcus, then Zoe before pulling papers from her bag, heavy enough to land with a thud. "Here's the quarterly audit. Here are confirmation letters from partners. And this." She scrolled her phone, displaying a series of headlines. 3 tech companies founded by people of color. Past 6 months, before funding rounds. Same kind of complaint. Same kind of anonymous tip. Zoe tightened her grip on her pen. Marcus locked eyes with Diane. "Same source." She shrugged lightly. "Same smell?" She clipped the sheets together, tapping the table. "We won't use the word conspiracy in this room. We'll let the numbers speak." The door reopened. Rodriguez and Donovan returned. Diane pushed the audit toward them, her hand resting on the edge until Donovan placed his on the other side. "This is what you need to review first," Diane said, her voice sharp as glass. "And I can provide direct contacts at the schools." Donovan flipped pages, eyes hardening at certain seals. He exhaled. "If all this holds, we may be looking at a larger picture." He didn't look at anyone when he said it. "We'll cooperate," Marcus said. "But she has an important meeting. Is there a way—" He stopped short of pleading. Diane finished. "Is there a way you can clear identity first and move financial review to the office?" Rodriguez weighed the thought, like listening to two voices at once. "We'll need some additional verification," she said. "After that, by procedure, you may leave, but we'll stay in contact. And you may be asked back later, today or tomorrow morning." Amara glanced at the wall clock. The minute hand crossed a tick. She nodded, like someone accepting an imperfect answer. Another knock. A different woman entered, dark coat, straight collar hair tied back. Assistant Director Karen Keller, she introduced shortly, handshake firm. "I've reviewed this." She set her hand on a chair, back eyes meeting each of them. "We'll broaden the scope. For now, you and your father may leave with counsel, but keep your phones on." Her gaze lingered on Amara. "You handled yourself very well." "Thank you," Amara said, soft but steady. Diane was already packing papers, her hands quick, like clearing a surgical tray. In the hallway, Zoe stopped at the vending machine, pressed orange. A plastic bottle dropped with a thud. She twisted it open, handed it to Amara. "Take a sip." Amara drank, faint plastic taste on her tongue. She caught her reflection in the glass door, small and straight beside the taller outline of her father, and another figure just reaching them. Diane, her heels clicking sharp on the floor. Zoe's phone buzzed. A message flashed, sunk. "Reschedule 10:00 a.m. tomorrow." "Sorry for inconvenience." Zoe showed the screen. Amara read it. Nodded, no smile, but her shoulders lowered by a millimeter as if setting down a bag. On their way out, they passed a wall-mounted TV with the sound off. The ticker scrolled "Breaking News" before vanishing under an old ad. Rodriguez stood at the door, nodded goodbye. "We'll be in touch," she said. "And I'm sorry for today." Marcus met her eyes with sincerity. "I know you're doing your job." Outside noon, sun stretched slowly upward. A government car waited. Inside, the back seat was so clean it smelled only of fresh fabric. Amara sat in the middle. Marcus on the left, Zoe on the right. Diane up front beside the driver, phone to her ear. "Chen here. Get me a direct line to Soon TC, and I need to check something else." She listened, nodded, scribbled a name on the edge of a business card, then flipped it face down. "What name?" Marcus asked. Diane gave a half smile. "Someone who may have swapped seats this morning to make sure things went the right way." No one pressed further. In the back, Amara leaned her head against the window, watching power lines strung across the blue sky like lines of code traced on white paper. The car merged onto the highway. Somewhere over the bay, a plane had already left Oakland, continuing to San Francisco. Inside it, a man stared at his own hands as if they belonged to someone else, while a silver-haired woman placed a call no one else could hear. The city unrolled ahead, steel and glass blazing bright. Amara blinked, opened her sketchbook, and added another line to the haptic module. She didn't write a title. She didn't need one. She left a small blank corner, just enough space to fill with a new story tomorrow. The St. Regis was cool and dim, just enough light in the lobby. Thick carpet. The doorman nodded as if he already knew their name. Jenkins Marcus said, "We have a reservation." As the check-in finished, the manager stepped forward, bowing slightly with courtesy. "Sir, there's a gentleman who has been waiting in the lobby for over an hour asking to meet you." He lowered his voice. Richard Blackwell. Marcus's chest tightened. Zoe glanced at Amara. Amara looked toward the revolving glass doors where a figure sat, stiff, like a chair no one dared use. I want to hear him, Amara said. Marcus turned to Diane. She nodded. Small conference room, second floor. Not the suite. The room was white long table water set out. Richard rose when the door opened, hands half extended, then retreating awkwardly. His face looked worn, as if he'd flown all night, though it had only been hours. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," he said, stumbling on the thank you. "You made the call," Marcus said flatly, "and the plane was diverted because of it." "I did." Richard nodded, eyes down. "For a seat, but also because of things I've carried too long." He pushed a folder across the table. "I work at Next Gen Educational Systems. 3 months ago, TechCore Ventures took control. There was a meeting. They talked about how to handle competitors before funding rounds. I didn't stand up. And this morning, I saw a child sitting in 2A. Silence. The wall clock ticked once, barely audible. "I was wrong," Richard said, looking at Amara, meeting her eyes for the first time. "I want to cooperate. These are emails, minutes, plans. You can take them to the FBI. I'll say what I know." Diane opened the folder, flipped a few pages, slid them into an inner file. "Tomorrow morning," she said, "8:30, Oakland office. You'll sign a statement." She fixed her eyes on Richard. "And you'll name every person in that meeting." "I will." Richard swallowed hard. "I don't expect forgiveness, but at least—" He stopped, unable to find words for the weight crushing his chest. Amara nodded. "Thank you for bringing it. You mentioned your nephew. The dyslexia update goes to beta next month. If he wants to join, I'll put him first on the list." Richard's head lifted. His nostrils flared like someone breaking the surface after too long under. "Thank you," he whispered, blurred on the last syllable. When he left, Diane closed the door softly like a period. She turned back, hand resting on a chair. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Sunka meeting," she said. "They just reconfirmed." Zoe flicked her phone. On the screen, a short message from Elizabeth Montgomery. "Welcome to San Francisco." "We'll meet soon. What's her role with Sunka?" Marcus asked. Diane gave a thin smile. "A newcomer." She looked at Amara, "One who sat across from you this morning." The evening stretched slowly like water soaking into paper. Amara showered, changed into a soft tea, sat on the floor with her slides sticking neon notes beside key points. Marcus called home, spoke briefly, his voice lightening at the word hello on the other end. Zoe rehearsed the demo, checking each clip a third time. Diane answered a call. Her voice clipped but firm. "Yes, I understand." Sent it straight to Agent Rodriguez, not through company email. Close to midnight, Amara's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Tomorrow someone will sit at the head of the table, arms crossed as you speak. Don't let those arms break your rhythm. Count 4 like on the plane. E.M." Amara stared longer than usual. She erased the number, not the message. She set the phone face down, inhaled 4, held 4, exhaled 4. Somewhere in the city, a silver-haired woman ended a call, closed the lid on a hard drive case, and stared from a high window out at an empty street. At dawn, fog draped the bay, thin as tracing paper. Breakfast was quiet. Amara ate a slice of toast, drank half a glass of milk, wiped her lips, tucked the napkin into her blazer pocket like a meaningless habit. Marcus retied his tie fingers, trembling at the second button, then stopped when Amara placed her hand on his. "Dad," she said, "count 4." They left the lobby at 9:20. The doorman swung the glass doors wide. At the curb, the car waited. Overhead, cables stretched across the sky like ruled lines pointing toward a bright dot in the distance. At 10 Sevars, a great door would open. A 9-year-old girl would walk in place, a stack of papers on the table, and speak her first words. At the far end, a pair of folded arms would drop to the table just as she reached slide 4, and everything that had happened yesterday, seat to way, the call, the alternate runway, the fluorescent-lit room would fall behind like dry footprints. But not vanish. They would stay waiting to be connected by another line, bolder this time. The glass tower of Sonki Ventures stood like a blade in the sunlight. Inside the lobby rose 2 stories, high, cool white stone. Jenkins Marcus told the receptionist. 3 guest badges printed warm in hand. The elevator shot upward, the city folding behind the glass like paper. On the 40th floor, the waiting room looked straight out to the bay. A dark wood table, a pitcher of lemon water with thin slices. Zoe set her bag down, checked adapters, HDMI backup printouts. Diane skimmed the agenda yellow marker, sweeping 3 lines. Amara sat upright, feet not touching the floor, swinging slightly, her hand resting on the laptop as if on the back of a sleeping cat. Jenkins, an assistant, pushed the door open, polite smile in place. This way. The conference room opened like a visor. Long, polished table, 12 people already seated, water glasses, aligned papers stacked thin. On the right side, Elizabeth Montgomery sat straight fingers, lightly interlaced her gaze, never pausing more than a second on anyone. She gave the faintest nod when Amara entered, like greeting someone passing the porch. "Good morning," said a gray-haired man, rising, hand extended, James Chen. After shaking, he gestured toward the head of the table, where a large screen was already lit. "Miss Jenkins, please." Amara pulled out her chair, set down her laptop, connected the cable. The screen lit up with the first slide, not a logo, but a short clip from a Detroit classroom, a curly-haired girl reading fluently a passage she'd stumbled on 3 months earlier. No music, just the sounds of a classroom pages, turning chalk, scratching a soft wow from a student in back. The next slide a chart, a green curve rising off the baseline like a ramp. "I'm Amara Jenkins," she said, her voice small but clear. "I built Dreamscape to turn hard lessons into games, and games into bridges." She clicked to the next slide. Numbers, maps, dots of light. "Infrastructure architecture," a board member asked. "Scalability, if users triple Zoe took the mic, her voice like a fitted glove. Microservices, regional deployments, local caching, queue-based pipelines. Internal SLA 1995. Another asked children's data protection compliance. Diane smiled faintly. FERPA, CAPA, state by state. "Here's legal counsel's opinion. We audit regularly." James Chen leaned back, fingers interlaced. "Access for low-income areas." Financial model, Amara inhaled 4, held 4, exhaled 4. She pointed to a small block on the slide. "We use cross-subsidy. Paid users in funded regions cover access in underfunded regions. With SUNTC, we can widen that range without cutting features." A man stroked his chin. Evidence of impact. Amara clicked next slide, dyslexia pilot, pre-post columns. Among 180 students in the trial, average fluency and engagement improved 40%. This is the beta for next month. She pulled a thin plastic board from her blazer pocket, rubber-backed. "And this," she said, placing it on the table, "is a haptic module for blind students." She pressed a sequence. The surface trembled lightly, shaping letters. One board member reached out, touched it, eyes widening slightly. "Prototype," Amara said. "Not expensive." Questions thickened. Localization volunteer, teacher translation team. Fraud prevention, usage anomaly, detection soft locks, class-level tracking. 3-year ROI. Zoe pulled up a chart, her cadence steady. Costs of localization and support included. Competition. Marcus spoke now, just a few words no longer. We don't sell lessons. We sell the reason a child won't give up. James Chen leaned back again, glance flicking toward the right where Elizabeth jotted a note in the margin of her paper. She said nothing. Only nodded a millimeter when the final slide showed a small black and white logo in the corner. Thank you, Amara said, closing the laptop. That's all. Silence held. James Chen tapped his fingers softly on the table. We'll deliberate for 15 minutes, he said. Please wait in the lounge next door. The door shut behind them. The lounge was quieter than the morning had been. Amara sat still, no more, foot swinging. Zoe opened a water bottle, placed it in her hand. Diane paced 3 steps, stopped, paced again. Marcus folded his arms, unfolded, picked up a sheet without reading. Inside the other room chairs scraped lightly. A throat cleared, a murmur, the scratch of a pen. No raised voices. The walls held their thoughts sealed. 15 minutes stretched to 20. The assistant opened the door. Please. The 4 rose together like stepping off a boat as the waves stilled. James Chen was already standing, his eyes fixed on Amara. Thank you for your patience. A beat. After careful consideration, SUNTC Ventures has decided to fully fund Dreamscape's global expansion plan. He paused. And an additional grant dedicated to accessibility features. Air burst from Zoe's chest like a stone dropped from her hand. Marcus lowered his arms. Diane closed her eyes briefly. Amara did nothing but nod. Thank you. One more thing, James Chen said, voice firm as a pen pressed hard. Given the current climate, if needed, SUNTC will publicly declare support for Dreamscape. He leaned slightly warmth, softening his gaze. Though I hope we won't need to. From the side row, Elizabeth lifted her glass, touched the rim lightly to the air. She looked at Amara a moment longer than usual. Her lips curved just enough like a faint margin note. Formalities flicked past like film in fast forward. Key terms, PR coordination. Memos scheduled. None slowed at the details. Only once when James Chen extended his hand. Congratulations, he said. Amara's small hand landed in his light but steady. Out in the hall, the city's noise rushed back. Amara stopped at the glass wall overlooking the bay. Water-green ships white a thin veil of fog already gone. She pressed her palm against the glass. It was cool, like a stone, straight from the freezer. Zoe's phone buzzed. A message lit up EM. The door has opened. Keep going. Zoe said nothing. She only looked at Amara, touched her shoulder. Lunch, she said. You need a sandwich that won't fall apart into a mess. Amara smiled just a little, like a crease at the corner of her mouth. The elevator doors closed, reflecting 4 shadows stretched, then shortened again as the lights above shifted. The wind outside carried salt and the smell of roasting coffee. They picked a small cafe on the corner of Market Street, glass door, half-open chalkboard out front, with soup of the day scrawled in white. Marcus ordered tomato soup, Zoe a chicken sandwich, Diane a black coffee. Amara ordered a grilled cheese, took a bite, the cheese stretching into a tiny bridge that snapped halfway. Diane's phone rang first. She glanced at the screen picked up. Chen. She listened, eyes drifting out toward the street. Understood. Send the documents over secure channel. Yes, I'll be there if needed. She set the phone down. The FBI has opened a formal investigation into TechCore Ventures, she said, as if reading the weather. Charges corporate espionage, securities fraud, and collusion. Zoe put her sandwich down. Marcus let his spoon drop into his bowl, the chime on porcelain small as a bell. Amara said nothing, just watched the black pepper flecks floating in her father's soup. Marcus's phone lit up. "Agent Rodriguez." He answered. "We received the documents this morning," her voice steady. "Some from an internal source. We'll be issuing warrants. We may need further testimony." "Thank you for cooperating," internal source Marcus asked. "I can't say," Rodriguez replied, then softened a fraction. "But you're not alone in this." Almost at the same time, Zoe's phone buzzed. "Message, Richard Blackwell. I'm at the Oakland office, signed my statement at 8:30. I'll tell everything." Zoe tilted the screen so Marcus and Amara could see. Amara nodded, took another bite of her sandwich. This time, the cheese didn't stretch. After lunch, they walked back to the hotel. Embarcadero bustled with joggers' streetcar bells clanging. A seagull perched on a lamppost, head cocked as if reading a headline in a passerby's hand. Amara walked close to the buildings, fingers trailing the low stone wall as if along a keyboard. In the elevator, the mirror doubled them into 8. Amara counted under her breath, 4, 4, 4. The door opened onto carpeted quiet. Their room was still cool printouts spread on the table laptop asleep at standby light blinking like a tiny fish. Zoe opened her laptop, logged into the server dashboard. Metrics steady. "No storm," she said. "Just wind." Diane sat at the desk, opened her editor, typed a memo for the team, soon-to-see outcome. Action points, comms coordination, crisis management if needed. She worked like sealing a box to the millimeter. "Marcus called Detroit tomorrow," he said. "Yes, follow the plan, and tell everyone the kid did well." On the other end, a small laugh like a hand patting his back. Amara pulled a chair to the window, sketchbook on her lap. She drew a line, added a dot, connected them with a faint vibration line. Pencil scratching soft. She stopped when her phone buzzed. "Message EM. I've sent everything to them. There will be a storm in the press. Let the adults handle the storm. You just keep your classroom calm." Amara replied, "Yes," then added, "Thank you for the seat yesterday." 3 dots appeared, vanished, appeared again. "Don't mention it. The window's better." Afternoon slid down the sky, shifting colors like the inside of a shell. Zoe sat on the carpet back to the bed, running the demo one more time for the signing. Diane took another call, her voice softening, "Yes, Mom." "I ate." "Don't watch too much news." Marcus stepped onto the balcony phone to his ear, shielding the wind, then returned, shutting the door. "Strong wind," he said, "but not cold." The news flashed on TV. TechCore's logo, then a shot of their headquarters, then the Crawl Federal investigation. Then a name Amira recognized from grown-ups' emails, Elizabeth Montgomery. Her face in a small box in the corner, a clip from an old conference interview. No sound, but Amara already knew her voice, the kind that never needed to be raised to be heard. A knock at the door, a hotel staffer delivered a slim envelope. Diane opened it. Inside, one plain sheet. "Tomorrow, 9:30, room 5, SUNTC memorandum." Initialed EM, no signature, no logo. Diane folded it, slipped it into her bag. "We'll have one last standardization run," she said. Late evening, the city sank into scattered lights, the far-off hum like waves on rock. Marcus turned off the main lamp, left a desk light glowing. "Get some rest," he said. "Tomorrow will be long." Amara closed her sketchbook, set it by her pillow. She lay on her side, eyes on the green charger light like a lone star. "Dad," she said in the dark. "I think she sat in 2A yesterday for a reason." Marcus chuckled softly. "I think so too. But I still like the window better," Amara added, eyes already closed. Marcus didn't answer. He stood at the window a while longer, watching a taxi signal left. Then he drew the curtain, and the room fell into a quiet shaped like a hand resting on a forehead. Tomorrow morning, Another door would open. A pen would sign. A voice on TV would rattle off words already guessed tonight. And in the middle of it all, a 9-year-old girl would sit straight-backed, one hand on the table, counting 4 as she had when the plane first shook. 9:25 a.m. The 37th floor hallway at S&C was as quiet as a library. Frosted glass door, conference 5, etched small under the handle. Diane knocked twice. The door opened to Elizabeth Montgomery Lightblazer, a pen clipped in her breast pocket like a black line. "Come in," she said. Small room, round table, 4 chairs. On the table, a cream envelope without a logo. Elizabeth slid it toward Diane. "Cooperation memo," she said. "Talking points we need aligned if the press asks, not glossy, just true." Marcus skimmed each line, nodded. Zoe pointed at one section. "Here add access before expansion. Could?" Elizabeth smiled with her eyes. "Yes." Amara sat still, her feet touching the floor this time because the chairs were lower. Elizabeth turned to her. "Any line you'd like on the page," Amara thought a beat. "Don't write my line," she said. "Let me say it." Elizabeth folded the memo, placed her pen on top. "Fair." She leaned back, slightly observing, as if weighing a puzzle she already knew the answer to. "There'll be a crowd out there," she added. "Microphones." Diane nodded. "I'll handle it." "No," Elizabeth said, voice light as placing a pebble on the table. "Let her speak one line. Then the adults do the rest." The door opened and closed quickly. Signatures landed silent on paper. Pens switched hands, the memo back in the envelope. Elizabeth rose. "I need to head in," she said. "See you downstairs." At the door, she paused, looked at Amara. "Count 4." The elevator fell smooth. Lobby doors opened to voices, flashbulbs. Diane stepped half forward, her hand raised like a shield. One question, only she told the press. Then email, no FBI questions. A reporter in a blue coat pushed a mic forward. "Are you really running the company, Amara? Or just the face soft, phrasing hardcore?" Amara looked straight into the lens. "I run it to make sure classrooms don't get left behind," she said. "Yesterday we almost missed class time." She paused half a beat. "But not today." Diane cut in right then, voice snapping the lid shut. "Thank you. Further questions by email." They moved on, glass doors sliding, the lobby speaker swallowing the shouted follow-ups. Outside, bay wind curled in, salty and cool. Across town, another room. FBI Oakland Room 2. Agent Rodriguez set a small recorder on the table, red light glowing like an eye. "Full name," she said. "Richard Allen Blackwell," his voice rough. "Do you swear to tell the truth?" Rodriguez asked. "Yes." "Who was present at the meeting on—" Agent Donovan asked, flipping a page. Richard listed names. Each one dropped like a stone into water. "Motive Donovan, market share," Richard said, planting flags before the funding round. He added, eyes drifting. "Documents Rodriguez." Richard slid over a black USB, emails, minutes, strategy slides. His hand shook so badly he had to clamp one over the other. I made the call," he said, though no one had asked. "Over a seat and over other things." Rodriguez didn't nod or shake her head. She only checked that the red light was still on. "Continue," she said. Back at Swansea's lobby, Zoe's phone buzzed. Message: Rodriguez received the documents. Confirming contents. Pass along. The girl said the right words at the right time. Zoe handed the phone to Marcus. He pressed a smile, silent. They ducked into a cafe next to the tower. Grinder noise like soft rain. Amara pulled out a folded sheet corner, creased. She wrote 2 lines, crossed out 1 word, filled the gap. Marcus tilted his head. That the line. Amara shook hers. Another line. CNN ran silent in the corner. News crawl. DOJ confirms expanded probe into TechCore. Images flicked logo glass building a cardboard box passed hand-to-hand in old footage. Amara didn't look up. She folded the small sheet, slid it into her inner pocket. "Want to go anywhere?" Zoe asked. Amara glanced at the street. "Library," she said. Diane actually laughed out loud for the first time that day. "Then I'll clear the way," she said. The public library smelled of paper and sundust. Amara pulled a thin book, sat cross-legged on the lowest shelf, read 10 pages, then slid it back exactly in place. No one noticed the little blazer-wearing girl who had just crossed the news cameras. Afternoon eased down slow. On the way back, they walked among students spilling out of school, heavy backpacks dragging their shoulders. A boy brushed past Amara, tripped on the curb. Amara caught him by reflex, then let go quickly as if afraid to drop glass. "Careful," she said. The boy grinned, kept running. In the hotel room, emails swam like small fish behind glass congratulations, meeting requests a few sharp questions. Diane filtered left 3 to answer now. Zoe sent a short line to the internal channel. Term sheet done. Focus rollout. Plus accessibility. Marcus switched off the TV, opened the balcony to the wind. A ship horn faint in the distance. Amara sat in a corner, opened the small hotel envelope she'd asked for. She slipped in her folded note, added 2 words at the bottom, then tucked the envelope into her sketchbook, like pressing a butterfly between pages. The room breathed slow. 8 p.m. The landline rang. Front desk, a polite voice. "A letter has arrived for you." Someone brought it up. On the front, only 2 initials, E.M. Marcus opened it. Inside a single printed page, "Tomorrow, 8:30 a.m., Federal Courthouse. I'll do my part, the rest yours." No signature. Amara read it. No frown, no smile. Just a nod, like finding the path through a blocked equation. Outside, the bay darkened the lighthouse, swung its long white arm across the water, then pulled it back. Early morning, the fog draped the bay like a thin scarf. SFO was crowded. Loudspeakers called flights. Baggage carts hissed. Lines curved like a rope. Amara held her ticket, standing between Marcus and Zoe. Diane walked behind phone, wedged between shoulder and ear, murmuring short words. "Yes." 11. "Send the draft." The check-in counter came into view. The agent glanced at her screen, then up. "Have a good flight, Miss Jenkins?" she said, her voice unconsciously softening a degree. Amara nodded. "Thank you." At the gate, the glass wall looked out on a plane inhaling air. A figure stepped out from the crew, rolling a small suitcase. "Hi, Sandra," said, stopping in front of Amara, her breath warm. "I'm not sure if you remember me." "I remember," Amara said. "Orange juice," Sandra reminded, laughing at herself. She held up a small plastic cup lid on straw bent. "I grabbed this from the galley," she said. "I thought—" She stopped, unable to find the word. "Thank you," Amara finished for her. Sandra nodded, her eyes wetter by a fraction, but still holding back. "Get on board," she said. "Today, no one will take your seat." On the jet bridge, Elizabeth walked the other way, no uniform, gray coat hair pinned neat. She paused half a second, just enough for a nod. "Courthouse 8:30, she told Marcus. "I'll be there." Then she looked at Amara. "Always count 4. And she moved on, light enough to leave no sound of heels. The cabin was still. Amara found her seat 2A. She lifted her bag into the bin, pulled the seat out. Marcus passed through the divider, half smiling, half sighing. Zoe gave a thumbs up, then took her own seat. Sandra walked the aisle, scanning like a gardener after rain. Richard wasn't there. The seat across was empty. The plane taxied. Amara leaned against the window. The city shrank again, but unlike 2 days ago, not a model, a new map. As the nose lifted, she closed her eyes. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. At the federal courthouse ground floor, Richard sat on a wooden bench, hands flat on his knees, like a student waiting to be called in. The door opened. Elizabeth passed through security, set her bag on the tray, stepped through, picked it up again. She didn't look at him. He looked at her but didn't dare call out. Moments later, Agent Rodriguez appeared. "Mr. Blackwell," she said. He stood. "Ready, I think so," he answered, doubting his own voice. In the sky, Amara opened her eyes just as the plane sliced through a thin cloud. Light spilled in like milk. She pulled out her notebook, took out the white envelope tucked inside, unfolded gently. A small paper quartered words in tight handwriting. "Every day, someone will ask if you deserve it. You don't have to answer them all. You just have to do your work on time in class with the right people. AJ." She folded it back, slipped it into her blazer pocket. Her hand returned to the armrest. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. An hour later, wheels touched down in Detroit. The air was different, thicker, warmer. Marcus lifted their bag, smiling tired. Zoe opened her phone as soon as there was signal. Notifications flooded FBI press conference at noon. UNTC issued a statement. Next Gen suspended several executives. Another email rose to the top: Detroit Community Innovation Center invitation keynote for global access launch 6 months from now. Zoe turned the screen to Amara. "Keynote speaker," she said. "Your name." Amara read the line. She didn't smile. She set her hand on the phone's edge, scrolled to the bottom. Auditorium, 800 seats. Students, teachers, parents. She nodded, like marking a line in her notebook. Out at the car park, the wind carried the smell of cut grass. Marcus opened the car door. Amara slid into the back seat, clicked her belt. Zoe sat beside her, opened her laptop, began typing subject stage projector bench for haptic demo. Diane messaged, "I'll stay another day. Tell the team." The car pulled from the airport. Blue highway signs, white letters. The city stretched open old streets looking slightly different today. Amara pressed her forehead to the glass for a second, cool. She closed her eyes. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. On the car radio, a flat voice read, "The Tech Corps investigation widens. An internal source, press briefing at noon." Marcus turned it down. Later, he said. "First, we eat lunch," Amara said, as if the idea rose at the same time as the memory of broth. Zoe smiled. "Oh, it is." The road, straight the sky clear. The 2A ticket folded in the pocket of a small blazer. Unseen, unlit, quiet. Just lying there like a margin note in a notebook. That afternoon, it would be placed in a box along with a half-used pencil and a folded sheet. 6 months from now, the box would open just before the stage lights rose, and then no one would ask about 2A anymore. They'd ask how many classrooms, how many children. Amara didn't answer questions that hadn't come yet. She just opened her notebook, drew another line, then another. Lines not meant to look pretty. Lines meant to go somewhere. And she kept drawing as the car turned down a tree-lined street, as the Poe sign appeared, as the doorbell chimed a small sound like a welcome. 6 months later. The lobby of the Detroit Community Innovation Center hummed like a hive. White ceiling lights, banners strung high, Dreamscape Global Access. At the check-in tables, blue lanyards stacked, name badges laid out in rows, ink still fresh. Backstage, Amara sat on a folding chair, feet swinging just slightly. She was taller now, hair tied neater blazer, fitting her shoulders half an inch better. Zoe knelt on one knee beside her, checking HDMI cables, audio jacks. Haptic, she reminded. Second tray. Marcus leaned against the doorframe, hands in pockets, watching his daughter in the makeup mirror. "Count 4, he said. Amara smiled, breathed in, held exhaled lips, moving soundlessly. Diane entered papers, clipped headset in one ear. FBI just finished their press conference, she said, voice slicing the air. Announced indictments against 3 senior Tech Corps executives. Names on screen. She paused. Richard Blackwell is a cooperating witness. Some charges dropped restitution and barred from management for 5 years. Marcus nodded. He didn't say good or deserved. He only set a hand on his daughter's shoulder for a second. A stagehand with headphones poked his head in 15 minutes, he said. Rooms packed. Amara stood. She pulled from her inner pocket a quarter-folded slip of paper, edges worn soft from being opened and closed too often. She read one line silently, folded it again, tucked it back. Outside, footsteps gathered. The door cracked open. Elizabeth Montgomery slipped in. No noise, no spotlight. Dark dress, thin scarf at her neck, perfume faint as an unopened flower. Congratulations. Elizabeth said no more than 2 syllables. She looked at each of them like taking roll call. I'll sit out there, no speaking. She looked at Amara. All right, Amara nodded. Yes. Just one line, Elizabeth said, eyes smiling. The rest let the classroom speak. The wings parted a stripe of light spilling across like white silk. The MC said her name. Applause broke, rolling over rows like waves on a lake. Amara walked out. Her hand cold for half a second, then warming as it touched the wooden lectern. Below a sea of faces, teachers, technicians, parents, and children. The front rows were children. Wide eyes, chins on hands, necks craned forward. No logo to start. First slide, a classroom in Mexico, mismatched desks, a girl smiling at an old monitor screen, glow painting her face. No music, only the auditorium fan, steady as a heartbeat. My name is Amara, she said. Her voice wasn't loud, but the mic carried it to all 4 corners. I'm not here to tell an extraordinary story. I'm here to tell an ordinary one when a child doesn't give up. Slides flowed, graphs, maps, bright dots. Amara spoke little, showed much. Each number paired with a face, a classroom, Kenya, Vietnam, Poland, Detroit. Zoe stood at the demo table, set the haptic board down. Touch it, Amara told a boy invited on stage. He placed his finger on the matte surface, eyes widening as the faint vibrations led him along the shape of a letter. Feels like the word walks across my hand. He giggled, the mic catching it, the room laughing with him. In row 8, Richard sat, slightly hunched hands clasped, tie-knotted straight. He had come on time, sat still, asked for no mic. When laughter spread, he closed his eyes for half a blink, as if someone had placed a warm glass in his hands. 3 rows away, Elizabeth tilted her head toward the stage, her gaze like a paperclip keeping a stack from sliding. Amara reached the last slide, a small black and white photo in the corner, a wooden school desk, 3 iron hooks, a thin notebook. I didn't start with technology, she said. I had paper, a pencil, and a blank wall. She paused. Today we have more, and we have each other. Applause, long. The MC waited until it slowed, then stepped forward. Thank you, Amara Jenkins, she said. Now for Q&A. A small hand shot up in the front row. A girl with twin braids, big dark eyes. I want to build software like you, she said clearly. Adults tell me I'm too young to understand. What should I say? The hall fell silent. Amara held the mic like a key. She thought for one beat. You say, okay, she answered. Then you build something small. People talk less when the small thing runs. A ripple of soft laughter, not because it was funny, but because it was true. Amara looked out at the rows. Age is a number. Numbers help us count, she said, but numbers don't teach us to dream. A quiet gasp, then more applause. Zoe glanced at Diane, lips pressed into a rare smile. The Q&A rolled on. About the financial model, about the team, about school policy. Amara answered the children first. The rest she passed to the adults, Zoe on infrastructure, Diane on legal, Marcus on district partnerships. Elizabeth asked nothing. She only jotted one of Amara's lines in the program margin, "Numbers don't teach us to dream." Backstage after the heat rose like an open kitchen. Hands shaken, photos taken, business cards offered. Richard waited outside a little apart, not leaning on the wall. When the crowd thinned, he stepped forward, then stopped because Marcus had already stepped out, standing between. The two men held each other's gaze briefly. Marcus nodded. "You came," he said. Richard didn't extend his hand. "I came," he replied. "To listen, not to speak." Amara came out. Richard bowed his head. "Thank you for the note about the update," he said, voice stripped of pride. "My grandson enrolled. He chuckled. Scattered with nowhere to land. He read the newspaper to me yesterday. Let him keep reading," Amara said, "but pick articles without too many hard words." Richard nodded, opened his mouth, closed it. "I am very sorry." Amara nodded. "I know." She turned to greet another guest. Richard stood still, eyes damp but tearless. By the end, the hall emptied. Technicians coiled cords, shut off lights, wound cables like vines. Elizabeth came close to the stage, didn't step up, only swept her eyes around as if saying goodbye. She set a small envelope on the lectern edge, no name, no mark. Diane noticed, stepped over, opened it a little. Inside, a photo of a document page, the final name in TechCore's internal email chain, someone not yet named that morning. Diane tucked the envelope into her binder. "Tomorrow," she said to Marcus, needing no further words. Amara sat at the stage edge, feet swinging, shoes tapping wood. Marcus joined her, handed her a water bottle. "Dad," Amara said, leaning her head against his shoulder. "I think I only said one good line." Marcus smiled. "Sometimes that's enough." Outside, afternoon slanted. Dust motes floated gold. On the steps, a cluster of school kids waited for autographs. A teacher behind them, arms around a thick stack of notebooks, eyes shining. Amara stood, walked over. Her small hand wrote her name one letter at a time. No one knew that in a cardboard box backstage, the 2A boarding pass from 6 months ago lay beside a half-used pencil and a folded slip of paper. No one opened the box now. It would rest until someone needed a reminder that spoke without a sound. Detroit at night. Cool streets, yellow lights. The Jenkins house quiet, like before a storm. On the dining table, a few plates still unwashed. Zoe sat at the kitchen counter laptop, open blue glow on her chin. Diane called, voice low. "Meeting the prosecutor tomorrow." "Next package, got it." Zoe replied, eyes still on the uptime chart, ticking up by single percents. Amara sat alone in her room. The window cracked, white curtain stirring. She opened the small brown box. Inside the 2A boarding pass, a stubby pencil, a folded slip of paper. She added the morning's program schedule, a sticker that read Global Access, with one corner peeling and a tiny screw removed from the haptic prototype, the extra screw with nowhere to turn. She lifted the 2A pass, saw the crease in the middle, darker now. She set it back, closed the box. No lock, no note. Her phone buzzed. A message from EM. "Tomorrow I go to Washington, other doors to open." "You open your classroom," Amara typed, "safe travels." 3 dots blinked, disappeared. Elizabeth didn't reply. She rarely wasted words. Marcus poked his head in sleep. "I will," Amara said. "Dad here." She handed him another quarter-folded slip, the one she'd written at the cafe and kept. Marcus opened it. Small writing. "If they ask how I don't feel fear, I'll say, I do. I just act before fear finishes its sentence." Marcus folded it back, returned it. "Beautiful," he said. "Where do we put it?" "In the box," Amara answered. for next time. Night passed. The city breathed steady. In an apartment a few blocks away, Richard Blackwell sat at his kitchen table. Glass of water, laptop, shut TV off. From a drawer, he pulled a photo of his grandson, grinning over an open book finger, pointing at a line. Richard touched the edge, pulled back as if afraid of smudging the ink. On his phone, a calendar alert. Community Service Reading Center, Saturday. He tapped accept. In a distant hotel, Elizabeth folded clothes neatly into a suitcase, placed the last external hard drive in a locked compartment, sealed it with a strip of plain white tape. She turned off the lights, pulled the curtain, set her phone face down. In the dark, pause between two flashes of streetlights, she closed her eyes and smiled for no clear reason. Morning. An elementary school in the suburbs opened its doors, old computer lab fans clicking. On the screen, Dreamscape logo appeared, then turned into a game with 3 paths. A child chose the middle, stumbled at the second bend, paused, then went on without going back. In another classroom, the haptic module buzzed under a small fingertip, tracing the letter A without sight. Amara stood at the doorway, silent. She watched, listened, counted 4. Zoe folded her arms beside her. Running smooth, she said, like butter. Cheap butter, Amara corrected. Zoe laughed. Back in the car, Marcus turned on the radio. A steady news voice, federal grand jury begins review. Former Tech Corps executive, internal witness provides data. Marcus clicked it off. It'll get noisy, he said. We don't chase noise, Amara replied. We chase class time. That afternoon, Amara returned to her room, opened her sketchbook. She drew another line, not straight, a little slanted, connecting one dot to another. She paused, wrote one small word in the margin: day. No someday, just day, period. No one recorded the moment sunlight fell warm on her neck like a scarf. No one photographed the moment the pencil lifted, leaving a darker dot at the end of the line. But unrecorded moments still happen. And sometimes they're the ones that keep a story standing upright. Night Detroit sky with few stars. Amara slid the cardboard box into the bottom shelf. She pushed it back until it touched the wall, listening for the soft thud. She turned off the light, pulled the blanket. Before her eyes closed, she breathed 4 in 4, hold 4 out as a final lock. Tomorrow, there would be another classroom. Another network online. A plane taking off without anyone turning back at the gate over a fake call. A child would ask, "Can I do it?" An adult would answer yes or not. Either way, a small hand would press against a haptic board and a letter would walk across it. Not every seat in life comes with the number 2A. That's fine. We still arrive where we need to go. If there's no seat, we stand. If no door, we knock. If no one opens, we return to the classroom power on the screen and begin again with the first lesson. Amara slept. The city kept turning. Somewhere, a door gathered light into a narrow stripe, then widened, then opened fully, and nothing was louder than the footsteps of children walking through. From seat 2A to open classroom doors across the world, Amara's journey reminds us that courage isn't loud. It just counts 4, then steps forward. Which moment touched you most, the seat 2A, the call that turned a plane around, or the line on stage? Age is a number. Numbers don't teach us to dream. If this story moved you, hit like, share with your friends, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapters.